Robert. My name is Phil Wilayto. I'm editor of the Virginia Defender newspaper. I'm here tonight with my wife and comrade, Anna Edwards. See, everybody knows Anna more than they know me. So. My topic tonight is the issues of militarism and how militarism and military spending affect us here at home. Money is the obvious one. No country spends more on wars than ours.
Yep.
With 5% of the world's people, we are responsible for 1/3 of all military spending. More than the next 7 or 8 countries combined, and that includes both China and Russia. We're told that some 23% of our federal tax dollars go to the Defense Department, but that doesn't include the cost of maintaining the nuclear arsenal, which comes under the Department of Energy, or care for veterans, which comes under the Department of Veterans Affairs, or the massive interest on the national debt, which is largely the result of borrowing money to pay for past wars. It doesn't even include the actual cost of fighting today's wars, which is a separate expenditure. The truth is that half our federal tax dollars are going to pay for wars, past, present, and future. What does this mean for us here at home? It means that among all the major developed countries in the world, and many of the less developed, we do not provide universal health care for our people. Our schools are funded by local property taxes, so poor communities get poor schools. Unemployed workers wind up in prison instead of in public jobs programs. There's never enough money for decent social services, but always enough money for another war. Each year, we're taxed more than $1 trillion for war. That could pay the salaries of 13 million elementary school teachers for a year, or wages for 19 million infrastructure jobs, or 4-year university scholarships for 32 million students, or Head Start slots for 118 million children. Jobs and education, or wars and occupations, what do we really want? Then there are the social effects of the wars in our society. After the police murder of 18-year-old Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, we saw what looked like a military invasion of the black community. Armed personnel carriers, combat-grade uniforms, and weaponry that looked like it came right off the battlefield. That's when many of us learned about the Pentagon program that transfers so-called surplus equipment to local police departments for free. Some years ago, I was talking with a teenager in my neighborhood in Richmond's East End. There were a lot of street shootings at the time, as there are now. And I asked him, what do you do if you think someone is out to get you? You get him first, he said.
Yeah.
At that time, President George Bush was telling us that Saddam Hussein was out to get us, and so we had to get him first. These values are being taught at the highest levels. Our society is addicted to violence. It's in our movies, TV shows, all our popular culture, and it's promoted by the Pentagon, which encourages Hollywood war movies as recruitment tools, and even develops its own war video games. The military is in our schools. The teenager who shot up his former high school in Parkland, Florida, learned to shoot in a junior ROTC program at that very school. When the Reverend Martin Luther King called the U.S. government the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, he was talking about our times as much as his own. The U.S. is now openly in war in Libya, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen, and Pakistan. It has military bases in 70 countries on every continent and a military presence of some kind in 150. The wars are not being fought for our defense, and they do not make us safe. They are being fought to protect the ability of U.S. corporations to make unprecedented profits, and they are making us much less safe by creating millions of enemies we never had before. And worst of all, they inflict unimaginable suffering on mainly poor people of color who are totally innocent of any crime against us or anyone else. As we demonize these same people of color, we build on and expand the legacy of white supremacy that enables the building of an empire on the bodies of the oppressed. No matter who is in office, no matter what political party they belong to, we must demand stop the wars at home and abroad.